The corridors of Celian Habitat Block 12 never got dark. The ceiling lights stayed bright and cold, making the metal walls shine like ice. Service drones floated past in quiet lines. Workers in plain uniforms walked home, eyes forward, not looking at anyone for too long. The building seemed calm and controlled. But at the far end of one hallway, everything felt wrong. Tara stood there with her back straight and her jaw tight. She was a thin alien woman with purple skin and tired eyes. Her door was sealed. Over the lock, an orange eviction tag pulsed in slow, steady flashes. Every blink told her the same thing. You do not live here anymore. She had seen that tag on other doors before. Families who fell behind. Old neighbors who disappeared after a few days. Those doors never opened again. She had always hoped that would never happen to her. She worked hard. She counted every credit. She did everything she could. It still wasn't enough. Fear sat heavy in her stomach. Her bare feet were cold on the metal floor. Her toes curled, but she did not move. Moving felt like accepting it. Like walking away would make it more real. Her daughter, Miri, stood pressed against her side. Their hips touched as if they were one person. Miri hugged a small stuffed creature to her chest. One of its ears was torn off. She held it tighter, afraid someone might take it away too. Her red hair was cut uneven, the result of dull scissors and a rushed hand. Her shirt was too big and kept sliding off one shoulder, showing how small and bony she really was. Miri was hungry. Miri was cold. But more than that, Miri was ashamed. She saw people walk past and pretend they were invisible. Clean boots, smooth hair, strong perfume. No one slowed down. No one asked questions. They moved like Tara and Miri were part of the wall, not living beings. Being ignored made Tara feel smaller than any insult ever could. She pulled her thin wrap tighter. It smelled like smoke and spilled drinks from the club where she used to work. A week ago, she still had a plan. Long nights, good tips, careful saving. Rent paid at the last possible moment. Food divided so Miri always ate first. Then her shifts were cut. No warning. No backup. Just a short message. We don't need you this cycle. Bills kept coming. Credits did not. Now they had a sealed door and a blinking strip to show the whole building she had failed. Mom, Miri whispered, voice small and tight. It's cold. I know, Tara answered softly. I'm sorry, baby. She wished she had a coat for her. She wished she had anything for her. All she had left in the small duffel by the wall was a thin blanket and a folded shirt that no longer fit either of them well. At the end of the hallway, the transit lift opened with a soft hiss. A human stepped out. Rylan Cade wore a navy inspection jacket with a reflective stripe across the chest. Heavy work boots knocked against the floor in a steady rhythm. A compact tablet hung at his belt. His dark hair was cut short, and there was a faint scar near his temple. His eyes were sharp, always moving, measuring, noting small things most people never saw. He had been a soldier once. Now he checked pipes, power lines, exit routes. It was supposed to be a quiet, simple job after war. But the old habits never really left. He still scanned every room, every corridor, every crowd. He saw them at once. A mother with no shoes. A child clinging to a broken toy. A sealed door behind them. An eviction tag blinking like a warning light. He tried to walk past. He had learned not to get involved unless it was his duty. It was easier that way. Safer that way. But then the little alien girl stepped forward. She looked up at him, eyes too serious for her age, and spoke in a trembling whisper. Human, my mom says we're okay, she said. She's lying. Rylan froze the moment he heard the little girl's voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft, but honest in a way that hit him straight in the chest. He turned fully toward her, and the quiet hallway suddenly felt too still, as if the entire building was waiting for his reaction. Miri didn't hide behind her mother. She stood there with her torn toy pressed to her chest, looking straight at him with tired eyes. Her courage felt too big for such a small body. Rylan lowered himself slowly so he didn't tower over her. Why do you say that? He asked gently. Miri swallowed. Because we have nowhere to go. And Mom keeps saying we're fine, so I won't be scared. Tara stepped forward quickly, placing her arm in front of her daughter. Miri, enough. Her voice shook, not with anger, but with fear of losing control. We're handling it. Handling what? Rylan asked quietly. His tone wasn't sharp or accusing. It was calm, steady, like someone who had dealt with chaos before and learned to speak softly to stop people from breaking. Tara's lips tightened. She didn't answer. Her silence spoke loud enough. Rylan rose to his full height and scanned the hallway again. The cold floors, the thin clothes, the empty duffel, the sealed door behind them. He didn't need more details to understand what had happened. He had seen displacement in many forms, after battles, after storms, after government errors. The look was always the same. "How long have you been out here?" he asked. Tara hesitated. Then she said, "Since the previous cycle ended." That meant hours. Long, cold hours. Rylan exhaled, a slow breath through his nose. His instincts, the ones he tried so hard to retire, were waking up again. Miri tugged on her mother's skirt and whispered, "Mom, my toes hurt." Tara closed her eyes for a second. Her hands trembled when she touched her daughter's back. "I know, sweetheart." Rylan made his decision. Clean. Simple. Solid. The kind of decision a soldier makes when time is short and someone is in danger. "My apartment is 2 levels down," he said. "You can stay there for tonight." Tara snapped her head toward him, startled. "What? No. Why would you?" "You shouldn't be out here," he said firmly. "Not with a child." "That's not a reason," she shot back, fear sharpening her tone. "It's enough for me," he replied. She stared at him like she was searching for the catch. "What do you want in return?" she asked quietly. "Nothing is free." Rylan met her eyes without blinking. "If I ever want something, I'll say it directly. I don't hide intentions behind kindness. That's not how I operate." Her breath wavered. It wasn't the answer she expected, and that made it harder to reject. "Mom," Miri whispered again, voice small, breaking a little. "Please. I'm so cold." That tiny voice shattered Tara's last bit of resistance. She gave a slow nod, barely audible. "Fine." Rylan picked up their duffel. It weighed almost nothing. That told him more about their struggle than anything they had said aloud. He led them to the lift. The ride down was quiet. The air hummed softly around them. Miri leaned against her mother's side. Tara folded her arms tightly across her chest, not defensive, but to hide her shivering. Rylan stood across from them, watching their reflections in the metal walls. The mother looked exhausted, but her eyes still had a spark of determination. The child looked fragile but brave. And he felt something shift inside him. A line he hadn't crossed in years. A responsibility he hadn't expected, but one he wasn't going to run from. When the lift doors slid open, he guided them toward a door marked Cade R. The lock blinked green. He pushed it open. "It's small," he said, "but it's warm. And it's safe." Tara stood at the threshold for a moment, uncertain, trembling, afraid to trust anyone. Miri stepped inside first. "It's warm," she whispered, relief spreading across her face. Only then did Tara follow. And Rylan knew. He had just taken the first step into something far bigger than a simple act of kindness. Rylan's apartment door slid shut with a soft click, sealing away the cold corridor behind them. Inside, the small space felt warmer than anything Tara or Miri had touched in days. The air smelled faintly of metal, soap, and something cooked earlier in the cycle. Simple, ordinary scents that felt strangely comforting. Miri stepped forward first, her bare feet sinking into the soft mat near the entrance. She let out a tiny sigh, almost too quiet to hear, but Rylan caught it. Tara remained near the doorway, arms crossed tightly over her chest, unsure if she had stepped into safety or danger. "You can relax," Rylan said quietly. "No one will throw you out from here." Tara didn't answer. She simply nodded once, her movements small and cautious, like someone who expected every gesture to be judged. Rylan pointed toward the bathroom. "There's hot water. Towels are inside. You should warm up." Tara hesitated, her eyes flicking from him to the closed panel. "I don't want to use your things." "They're there to be used," he replied. His tone wasn't soft, but steady in a way that felt reliable. "Miri especially needs warmth." Miri tugged her mother's hand. "Mom, please." That was enough. Tara exhaled shakily and nodded again. Rylan handed her a clean shirt, plain, dark, far too large for her. "It's just until your clothes dry," he said. Tara accepted it with trembling fingers, then guided Miri into the bathroom. The door closed, and for a moment the apartment fell silent except for the sound of running water. Rylan stood there, staring at the door they had vanished behind. He wasn't used to this, having people here, having a child's voice echo off the walls, having a stranger trust him even a little. It felt strange, heavy, important. He turned toward the kitchen. Warmth would help them. Food would help them more. He washed his hands, pulled out a small pack of meat strips, and heated a pan. The familiar rhythm calmed him. Oil sizzling, knife scraping, spices warming. His movements were precise, almost military. When the bathroom door opened again, Rylan glanced over. Tara stepped out slowly, wearing his shirt. It hung off one shoulder and brushed against her thighs. Her long red hair was damp, darker in color, water tracing lines down her neck. She looked different, cleaner, softer, almost like the version of herself she had been before life started taking things from her. Rylan's gaze flicked once, just long enough to check if she looked warmer. Then he turned back to the pan. He controlled his reactions tightly, the way soldiers do when something catches them off guard. Food's almost ready, he said. Tara guided Miri to the table. The girl climbed onto a chair, her legs dangling. Her eyes widened as the smell of cooked meat filled the small room. It smells good, she whispered. It will taste better, Rylan replied, sliding 2 plates toward them. He took the third seat, but left a little distance, not wanting to crowd them. Miri dug in immediately, hunger taking over. Tara ate slower, her hands steady but her eyes constantly shifting. Toward Rylan, toward the door, toward her daughter, back toward Rylan. She looked like someone waiting for a hidden rule to be broken. You don't have to ration it, Rylan said gently. Eat properly. She paused. I'm not. You are, he said simply. Not judging. Just stating a fact. Tara's throat tightened. She looked down at her plate and nodded once before taking a real bite. When the food was done, Rylan stood and pulled out a thin sleeping mat from a cabinet. You and Miri take the bed, he said. Tara blinked. No, you don't have to give that up. I've slept on far worse, he replied. The floor is fine. She watched him spread the mat out near the wall, his movements steady and practiced. And for the first time since meeting him, her shoulders relaxed just a little. Miri leaned against her arm, already half asleep. Mom, she murmured, I like it here. Tara brushed her daughter's hair gently. Just for tonight, she whispered. She wasn't sure if she was warning Miri or herself. When the lights dimmed automatically for night cycle, Tara lay beside her daughter in the small sleeping alcove. Through the half-open panel, she could see Rylan lying on the floor, one arm behind his head, eyes open, watching the ceiling like he was listening to distant echoes only he could hear. Maybe from his old life. Maybe from battles he never talked about. Tara closed her eyes. For the first time in a long time. Sleep came softly, and Rylan stayed awake, keeping watch. Not because he had to. Because something inside him refused to let them be unsafe again. Morning cycle arrived with a pale white glow that washed through the narrow window of Rylan's apartment. The lights outside brightened slowly, signaling the start of another crowded day in Celian Habitat Block 12. Tara stepped out of the sleeping alcove with Miri close behind her, the child rubbing her eyes with her small fists. The room felt warmer than the night before, but Tara's nerves were already tightening again. Safety inside this apartment was temporary. The world outside still wanted her gone. Rylan was already awake, sitting at the small table with his jacket half zipped and a data tablet beside him. He wasn't eating or drinking, just waiting, watching, prepared. His posture was the same as last night, alert yet calm, like a man who never really rested. We're going to the registry office today, he said, not looking at them, but checking the tablet. We need to fix your status before the eviction affects Miri. Tara's stomach dropped. They won't help us, she muttered. They never do. Rylan finally glanced up. His expression was steady, almost stubborn. They will today. How can you be sure? She asked. Because I'm walking in with you. Those words hit her harder than she expected. She didn't know why a stranger cared enough to fight a system she had been losing against for weeks. But she didn't have time to question it. They needed a plan. Tara fixed her hair and straightened the clean skirt she had worn since yesterday. Rylan opened the door without waiting for her answer, standing half a step ahead like he was clearing a path through danger. The corridor outside was busy again. Workers rushed past. Drones beeped. No one looked at them directly, but Tara still felt the weight of eyes she imagined. She walked beside Rylan but slightly behind, her hand wrapped around Miri's. Stay close, he said quietly. Miri squeezed her mother's hand tighter. The transit lift opened, and they stepped inside. Tara pressed her back to the wall, trying to make herself smaller. Rylan stood in front of her like a shield, broad shoulders blocking the view of anyone who might stare too long. When they reached the registry level, the noise hit them first. Voices, machines, echoing footsteps. Screens flashing with numbers. Clerks tapping on consoles without looking up. Tara tensed instantly. Her breathing went shallow. She remembered the last time she came here. How a clerk waved her away, claimed her paperwork was wrong, never explained, never even looked her in the eyes. She had walked out crying while Miri held her hand and told her it was okay. Stay calm, Ryland said. Let me handle things. He approached an automated kiosk with confident steps. His ID synced automatically with the screen, something Tara's ID never did. He typed fast, selecting codes she had never heard of. Special overrides. Temporary protections. Dependents' rights. How do you know all this? She whispered. Ryland didn't stop typing. My previous work required it. Military. He didn't answer, but his silence was enough. Within minutes, he printed a ticket. Sit there, he said. I'll call you. Tara sat stiffly in the waiting area, Miri leaning against her side. She watched Ryland approach the clerk's desk when their number flashed. The clerk didn't even lift his eyes. Purpose. Housing Protection Review, Ryland said. Provisional override for a minor. The clerk finally looked up, first at Tara and Miri, then at Ryland. Something about Ryland's posture made the man straighten immediately. These two, he asked. Yes, Ryland replied. Calm, direct, unshakable. The clerk hesitated when he saw the eviction stamp. This was issued last night. That's why we're here early, Ryland cut in. Not rude, not aggressive, just firm enough to make refusal sound dangerous. The clerk typed faster, then looked up. You're approved for a 30-cycle protection period. Tara froze. She stared at him as if she hadn't heard correctly. H, 30 cycles? She whispered. The clerk nodded. It protects the child's housing status. You may reapply after. Tara's eyes stung. She blinked hard, refusing to cry in front of strangers. Miri tugged on her skirt. Mom? Does that mean we're safe? Tara knelt and hugged her daughter tight. Yes, for now, yes. When she looked up, Ryland was standing there, watching her with a calm expression that didn't match the storm she felt inside. You fixed what I couldn't fix for weeks, she whispered. It wasn't your fault, he said. You didn't have access. I did. She didn't know how to respond. Gratitude mixed with fear in her chest. Fear of needing someone. Fear of trusting again. But for the first time since the eviction, the future didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a path, and Ryland was the one clearing it. The moment they stepped out of the registry building, the air felt different. Not cleaner, not warmer, just lighter, like a weight had been lifted from Tara's chest, even if only a little. But relief was a fragile thing. It never stayed long, and she could feel it slipping as they moved back into the busy walkway. Miri walked between them, clutching her stuffed toy, humming softly now that she knew they wouldn't be dragged away from each other. Ryland kept his pace steady, his steps measured, his gaze drifting from person to person like he was scanning threats without even thinking about it. He always did that, stayed alert, stayed aware. It made Tara feel protected and uneasy at the same time. We need food, Ryland said. Real food, not nutrient packs. Miri practically jumped. Meat. Yes, he replied with a small nod. Meat. They headed toward a row of food stalls where grills sizzled and steam rose into the warm air. The smell of cooking hit Tara so hard her stomach tightened painfully. She tried to hide it, but Ryland noticed anyway. He always noticed. Sit there, he said, pointing to a metal bench. I'll order. Tara sat with Miri beside her, folding her hands in her lap to keep them from trembling. She watched Ryland speak to the vendor. No hesitation, no awkwardness. He acted as if this wasn't a favor but a simple task, something he did every day. When he returned with 3 plates, the heat rising from the food made Miri gasp in delight. Thin meat slices, toasted bread, a drizzle of sauce. Nothing fancy, but to Tara, it looked like a feast. She picked up her fork carefully, trying not to look desperate even though hunger gnawed at her ribs. You don't have to hold back, Ryland said without looking at her. Eat normally. I am, she whispered. You're rationing it, he said calmly. You don't need to. Her jaw tightened. She hated how easily he saw through her. But she took a bigger bite anyway. While they ate, Ryland studied her quietly, almost like he was putting together a puzzle. You used to work night shifts, he said. At a club. Yes, she replied. It wasn't much, but it kept us fed. And they cut your hours without warning. Tara nodded bitterly. They didn't care what happened to us. Then stop tying your future to a place like that, Ryland said, not unkindly. You need a job that gives you stability, not fear. She laughed softly, but it wasn't a happy sound. There's no stability for people like me. There is, he said. You just haven't been shown where to look. He stood and nodded toward a small corner of the market where a cluttered job board stood. Old paper notices, flickering digital ads, half-torn postings. Come with me. Tara followed slowly, unsure what he expected her to find there. He pointed at the board. Start here. She frowned. These are temporary jobs. Yes, he said, but some are reliable. Morning shifts. Food stalls. Cleaning crews. Laundry units. Better than the club. Better hours. Better people. She scanned the list, her eyes catching on a few newer postings. I can't just walk in and demand work, she whispered. They'll take one look at me and... They'll take one look at you, Ryland interrupted, and see someone who shows up. Tara blinked. Why do you sound so sure? Because you survived the last month, he said. Most people wouldn't. Silence settled heavy between them. Miri tugged on her mother's skirt, smiling up at her. Mom, you can do it. The smallest encouragement from her daughter felt stronger than anything Tara had heard in years. Ryland placed his hand on the board, pointing to another posting. This one, he said. Level 8. Morning prep at a grill stall. No contract needed. It's far, she mumbled. I'll take you, he replied simply. She shook her head. You're doing too much for us. I'm doing what needs to be done, he said. Until you can stand on your own again. His voice wasn't soft. It wasn't emotional. It was solid, grounded, like a bridge being built piece by piece beneath her feet. Tara looked at the board again, her breath catching slightly. For the first time since the eviction, she wasn't staring into a dead end. She was staring at a beginning. And whether she liked it or not, Ryland was shaping it with her. The walk back to Ryland's apartment felt different from the walk earlier that morning. The corridors weren't as loud, and the rush of people had thinned. The bright ceiling lights still made everything look cold, but something around Tara felt warmer now, like the air wasn't pressing against her lungs so tightly. Miri walked between them again, swinging her small stuffed toy with gentle motions. She hummed under her breath, a quiet tune that sounded like relief. Tara watched her daughter closely, amazed at how quickly a child could bounce back from fear and terrified of losing this bit of peace. Ryland stopped at a small supply kiosk before heading home. The shelves were stacked with simple essentials: soaps, towels, cold-pressed shampoo cubes, basic underclothes, small hygiene kits sealed in thin plastic. You need these, he said, picking items with quick, efficient movements. He didn't ask what she preferred. He already knew what someone in her situation needed first. Tara stepped forward. I can pay. No, Ryland said, shaking his head. You'll pay me back later. When you're not choosing between food and soap. The way he said it, practical, without judgment, made her breath catch. He didn't treat her like a burden. He treated her like a person, like someone worth helping. Back inside the apartment, he placed the supplies neatly on the counter. The space felt lived in now, like the presence of 2 extra people had shifted something invisible in the room. Tara stood near the table, unsure where to put her hands. She touched her skirt, smoothed her hair, adjusted the hem of her borrowed shirt even though she wasn't wearing it anymore. Small nervous gestures, habits built from weeks of living on edge. You two sit, Ryland said, already moving toward the kitchen. I'll cook something. Miri brightened instantly. More meat. Yes, Ryland said. Always meat. He opened his small freezer drawer, pulled out a pack of meat strips, and began slicing them with the same careful rhythm as before. The sound of the knife tapping against the cutting board echoed through the room in a steady beat. Oil sizzled when it hit the hot pan. Spices popped. The scent filled the air quickly, warm and comforting. Tara sank into a chair, her legs heavy from the long day. You cook every cycle? When I'm home, he replied without looking back. On long shifts, I grab something quick. But I like cooking. You eat alone, she said softly. It wasn't a question. Ryland paused for half a second, just long enough for her to notice, before flipping the meat again. Most of the time. Tara lowered her gaze. We'll get out of your way soon. I don't want to disrupt your life. That's not what I meant, Ryland said gently, turning toward her. I'm used to being alone. That doesn't mean I want to stay that way. Tara's breath hitched. She didn't know how to respond. She didn't even know how to feel. Being needed scared her. Being wanted might terrify her even more. They ate together, the room warm with cooking smells and quiet conversation. Miri devoured her food happily. Tara ate slowly, still not fully trusting the new comfort in her life. After clearing the plates, Rylan walked to the small console near the window and pulled up a list of available living units across the habitat. Rows of numbers and blinking markers filled the screen. "You're already looking for a home?" Tara asked in disbelief. "That's the goal," he said. "You're not staying in a cramped rental with me forever. You need your own place." She swallowed hard. "You're taking too much responsibility." "It's not a burden," Ryland said, his voice firm but calm. "I made a choice when I saw you two standing in that hallway." Her heart tightened. She had never heard anyone speak like that to her. Clear, steady, without hidden motives. Miri crawled onto the couch and leaned against his arm, her stuffed toy pressed against her cheek. "Thank you, Rylan," she said sleepily. Rylan froze for a moment. Then he placed a gentle hand on her back. "You're welcome." Tara watched them, her chest tightening with a mix of gratitude and fear. This bond, this closeness, it was developing too fast. She didn't know how to stop it. She didn't know if she even wanted to. Rylan stepped back from the console and looked at her directly. "You asked earlier why I'm helping you so much," he said. She nodded, unable to find her voice. "I'm helping because I don't believe people should be thrown away," he said. "Not you. And definitely not your daughter." Silence wrapped around them, thick and unspoken. Tara looked away, blinking hard. Trust was something she didn't know how to handle anymore. But something inside her shifted anyway, trembling but real. The apartment dimmed as the cycle lights softened into evening mode. Miri curled up on the couch, already drifting to sleep. Tara stood in the soft glow, unsure whether she had stepped into danger, or into the first real safety she had felt in years. Evening cycle dimmed the apartment lights until they glowed softly against the metal walls. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the ventilation system. Outside, distant footsteps echoed through the corridor like muted thunder. But inside, everything felt still, like the world had finally stopped chasing Tara long enough for her to breathe. Miri had fallen asleep curled against the corner of the couch, her stuffed toy tucked beneath her chin. Her small chest rose and fell in slow, peaceful breaths. Seeing her resting so deeply sent a shockwave through Tara's heart. It had been weeks, maybe months, since her daughter had slept without jerking awake in fear. Tara stood near the table, watching her daughter with trembling hands. She didn't trust this peace. It felt too fragile, too borrowed. Like one loud knock on the door could shatter it all. Rylan sat on the floor, back resting against the wall, tablet still on the table beside him. He wasn't scrolling anymore. He wasn't analyzing housing units or searching for safer neighborhoods. He was just watching the room, watching them, with a quiet focus she didn't know how to interpret. "You're thinking too much," he said softly. Tara swallowed. "I don't know how not to." "Try," he said. "I can't," she whispered. "Every time things get better, something goes wrong. Every time I let myself feel hope, something takes it away." Rylan looked down for a moment, then stood slowly, stepping closer until he was an arm's length away. Not too close, not too far, just present, solid. "I know what it feels like to expect disaster," he said. "Years of training kept me ready for the worst. But sometimes the worst doesn't come. Sometimes you just survive." Tara shook her head. "Surviving isn't the same as living." "No," he said, "but it's the first step toward it." She looked at him then, really looked. The faint scar along his temple, the steady set of his shoulders, the way his hands stayed relaxed even when everything about him said he was ready to protect at a moment's notice. "You don't even know us," she whispered. "I'm learning," he said simply. His answer wasn't dramatic. It wasn't romantic. It was honest in a way that left her breathless. Silence settled again, softer this time. Not tense, not heavy. The kind of silence that felt like a blanket laid gently over a wound. Tara moved toward the sleeping alcove where Miri would rest for the night. She paused in the doorway and looked back at Rylan. He was still watching her, not with ownership or expectation, but with something steadier. Something she didn't recognize at first. Respect. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at her like that. "You've done more for us in one cycle than anyone else has in years," she said quietly. Rylan shook his head. "I haven't done enough. Not yet." Her heart pinched. "You can't fix everything." No, he agreed. But I can make sure you're not alone in facing it. Something warm spread in Tara's chest, fragile but real. She stepped into the alcove, lifted Miri gently, and settled beside her on the narrow bed. Before closing the sliding panel, she looked out toward Rylan one last time. He wasn't looking away. He wasn't pretending not to care. He was standing there like a quiet guardian, someone who refused to abandon them even when he had every reason to walk away. "Good night, Rylan," she whispered. "Good night, Tara," he replied, voice low and steady. She slid the panel halfway shut, leaving a small opening, a tiny gap of trust. As she lay beside Miri, listening to her soft breathing, Tara realized something that made her chest tighten and loosen at the same time. For the first time since her husband died, she wasn't ending her day wondering how she would survive tomorrow. She was ending it wondering what tomorrow might look like with someone at her side. Not someone she depended on, not someone who controlled her, but someone who simply refused to let her fall. Rylan returned to his place near the wall, leaning his head back and closing his eyes. Not to sleep. He wasn't ready for that, but to think. He had promised himself long ago never to get involved again, never to carry another responsibility, never to let anyone back into the space he kept locked tight. But then a small alien girl whispered the truth, and her mother looked at him with fear and strength tangled together, and something inside him shifted. He wasn't sure what the future held. He wasn't sure how far this fragile connection would go, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't letting them walk through the world alone ever again. Cliffhanger for next episode. Trouble is coming, because systems don't like being challenged, and Rylan is ready to fight back.